Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this regularly scheduled Springettsbury Township Board of Supervisors meeting. Our first item will be a pledge to the flag. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We had two executive sessions last meeting, one immediately before the regular meeting and one immediately after for purposes of a legal discussion. And we also had an executive session a little bit earlier this evening, right before this meeting. So at this point, I would like to start with communication from citizens. Before we do that, I want to just talk a little bit about the procedure. There's a lot of people in the room. Some of you may not be familiar with our policies and how we do things. So what I'm going to ask is, we had a little mix-up last time with order, and some people did not get to speak about the school. The school is going to be a separate item tonight, and I am going to ask that we hold all comments on the settlement and land development conditions agreement until that time. Tonight, I will make sure that everyone has ample time to speak according to our policies and procedures here. What I'd like to do is reserve the comments time right now for all other issues that any other citizens might have. So what I'd like to do is just let everybody understand that these comments are for tax-paying citizens of our community and anyone who is a tax-paying business owner in our community. Anyone else that would like to make comments to the board should do so by addressing a letter or email to our township manager. Let me go through the rules here just so everybody understands. Public comment period shall be provided. I'm going to paraphrase a couple of these things. Each individual shall be provided a maximum of 3 minutes of time for remarks. No discussion of personal matters shall be entertained by the Board of Supervisors. With the exception of emergency service responders, all cell phones and/or electronic devices shall be silenced in the meeting room during the meeting. Proper decorum and Robert's Rules of Order shall be followed at all times. Any person disrupting a meeting shall be asked to leave. If said individual has not left, then the board shall take a break until the proper authorities are contacted to remove the individual. All motions and/or recommendations for consideration by the board may only be made by board members. No motions will be entertained from the floor. So we're going to keep it. Another thing that I would ask is if there are multiple people speaking to exactly the same point, I would ask that you have a representative, and I'll ask for a show of hands for how many people support that point and have it addressed that way, just because we need to keep this calm and orderly. I think that should be about it. At this time, I would like to ask anyone who would like to address the board to either raise their hand in the audience, or in the case of Zoom, if you could click the raise hand button to be acknowledged to address the board. Yes, please.
Good evening. My name is J.J. Miller, and I live at 1318 East 11th Avenue. I am here, and
Again,
I'm sure
for
you
the
know
same-
why we're here, okay? With everything going on, with the bridge being closed on Sherman Street and the gas company closing Whiteford Road down, our street, 11th Avenue, has now become a highway. And I have called numerous times the township. Nobody's called me back. I emailed you a letter, and you did not answer my question that I had. And I've called the police and asked them to please come out and sit in my driveway and at least observe the situation. They never showed up. They sat out on Edwards Lane, but they never showed up on 11th Avenue. So I got Fox 43 News involved. They came out today. While they were there, within a 15-minute span, we had 50 cars. 50 cars. And this was when the school buses were coming up through. And we also had one huge box truck and one large Budweiser truck come up through there. Now, there's a weight class on that road, there's a weight class on that bridge, and they're still coming up through there. Also on 10th Avenue, they come off of Sherman Street and they figure they're gonna cut the S curve on 11th Avenue and they speed on through on 10th Avenue onto Thomas and then out to Edwards Lane. Something needs to be done. They're not stopping at stop signs, especially on 10th Avenue and down on Whiteford Road where they come off 30, okay? They're just running that. Where the Enterprise car place is on that bend, if you're heading east on 11th Avenue, people are coming off 30, they're not looking to the right, they're pulling right in there. And there's been a couple close calls. Something has to be done. I appreciate the fact that you guys, had a meeting for us out there and, offered these things that you were going to do, and apparently they fell through except for the speed humps. Those speed humps aren't deterring people anymore. My house shakes now because these trucks are rolling over them. The ones on Whiteford Road, I realized got tore up last year because people sit on them and then they gun them and take off and it tears them out of the ground. I've watched it. Or they'll drive up on the grass of the township right away to try to get around those speed humps. I called numerous times last year. Nobody did a thing about it. And I'm telling you, I'm not here asking you to do something. We need to do something before somebody gets killed out on that road. It's bad. It's bad. I mean, between you guys
Next
and the
steps,
state.
I mean,
Well, between you,
Yeah.
the state, and the gas company, it was pretty poor planning. I mean, it was bad planning all the way around. Now they're going to go on Edwards Lane soon, and they're going to be at that intersection of Edwards Lane and 11th Avenue. Where's the traffic going to go now? They can't get through. They won't be able to get
I
through.
know we've taken a look at one-way circulation, but with the bridges shut down, that would have blocked people in and not be able to get out.
Well, and the
We've
school
done-
buses wouldn't be able to get around either and drop off in the proper locations. You can't walk out there anymore. People are afraid to walk their dogs anymore. You can't ride bikes out there. Some of the kids, the older kids, have to walk from the church up the street to their homes. Right, and the police aren't doing anything. I've called numerous times. And
So that's-
they
that-
drove down my street at one time, and that was it. Now, I do have cameras, and I do have it on video, but my problem is I'm illiterate when it comes to electronics and do not know how to put it on a flash drive. So,
Okay, well, we hear you, and we will do everything that we can to try to help the situation out. I know that we cannot have a police car sitting there all the time because that takes a resource away from the rest of the township all the time. I know that's not what you want to hear.
I'm not asking for all the time. They were out on Edwards Lane. They sat there all day just about on Edwards Lane.
They don't have speed bumps on 10th yet.
Yeah, they don't have the speed bumps on 10th Avenue. It's,
It's two of them, not one.
I'm telling you, somebody's going to get hurt. 50 cars in 15 minutes is ridiculous.
Yep.
And I just saw on the paper here where you mentioned about, and that's old business, sidewalks out that area. That's impossible on our street because you'd be taking people's front yards. Something has to be done. That traffic has to be rerouted.
Okay,
Something has to be done.
we've heard you loud and clear. We will take another look out there to see what can be done.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's what we heard the last time. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I know if I get hit out there, man, I have somebody to sue now.
Name and address for the record, please.
John Sprankle, 1791 Memory Lane Extended. This is just kind of an information. I was hoping to hear First Capital Engineering, but I guess you had a closed session with them. Weren't they on the agenda? First Capital Engineering was going to be on,
That's our township engineer.
yeah.
They are on the agenda
They are,
later.
okay. I thought they were going to be speaking about something. Well, this is about the apartments on Memory Lane Extended. And I have been watching it. I've been reading the minutes. And in 2011, I was here at a meeting, and actually Solicitor Markey at the time had to charge the board that he incorrectly charged them at the beginning on a variance. So sometimes I wonder how well you're versed in the MPC. So I don't think I have to read Section 512 on modifications and waivers, because according to Mr. Robinson, during discussion on LD 2023-0001, he shared that training provided in the past to Planning Commission members indicated that it is not the township's responsibility to approve waivers because the applicant doesn't want to spend money, which applies to the undue hardship that they would have to try to prove. Now, when I watched all these modifications and waivers being pretty much passed through, I did not see any deliberation at all where they had to try to prove an undue hardship on anything. And a prime example is the traffic impact study. And I think First Capital Engineering is still requesting that be done. Now, the applicant didn't want to do it. First Capital Engineering has observed recent development in the past 10 years near the proposed site. The Casino Triplet Springs subdivision has led to increased traffic activity along Memory Lane. Therefore, First Capital Engineering recommends a traffic impact study to establish traffic volumes along Memory Lane. The engineers want it, but for some reason, one of the minutes, it was waived. I've been to enough of these meetings, I read enough minutes to see 10 waivers and modifications just be pushed through without any deliberation. And this project's pretty big. For that area, it's going to change the characteristic of the entire neighborhood. It's going to increase the traffic. And I just wanted to be on the record that you guys should, take a look at it again, because I could easily see some error in facts on some of those errors and modifications.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
My name is Jeannie Vermeer. I live at 2800 Lehigh Road, Springettsbury Township, also York Suburban School District. Since the February 27th meeting, I haven't been clear on who's allowed to make public comments, and I'm still not clear. So I did some research, and according to the Pennsylvania website, openrecords.pa.gov, and as you mentioned, residents or taxpayers, and you mentioned taxpayers in the community. So I would say residents of Spring Garden Township are taxpayers in the community because they are taxpayers in York Suburban School District. Is that a correct, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask questions, is that a correct understanding? So I'm just thinking, since the open records just says taxpayer, and this evening you mentioned taxpayer, they are taxpayers in the community because the school district is part of the community.
So my understanding would be that York Suburban is not a township entity, and they do not pay taxes to Springettsbury Township. And that was my understanding.
So and not to contradict you, just to continue with the research that I did, Yesterday, April 23rd, I called Spring Garden Township and asked, for myself, as a resident of Springettsbury, and again, a taxpayer to York Suburban, would I be allowed to make public comments at the various Spring Garden Township meetings? And the answer was, the reply was, quote, anyone from the public can make public comments, end quote. And they went on to say, at any public meeting, anyone from the public can make comments. So again, I was asking, because the school district also is proposing renovations to the high school. Well, the high school is in Spring Garden. And, like I said, even though I live in Springettsbury, I pay taxes to Suburban. The high school happens to be in a different township. So I would expect that I'd be able to make public comments in that school district, or, excuse me, at the Spring Garden Township meetings. And so just personally, as a taxpayer in Suburban, understanding that Springettsbury Township, part of it is in Central School District, personally, I probably would not make comments about any issues for Central, but that's just me. So so for this evening, please tell me again, I'm sorry.
I think it's pretty clear. If you are a taxpayer to Springettsbury Township, not, Central York covers multiple jurisdictions. They are not our tax base. We don't collect taxes for the school. So if you are a taxpayer to Springettsbury Township, you can speak at a public meeting in Springettsbury. If another township has relaxed their rules to allow something that is not required to be allowed, that's up to them, and I can't control that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone online that would like to address the board, click the raise hand button. Anyone else in the audience? All right, seeing none, we will move on to our, oh, please.
Dawn Benavenia, Dorm Road in Springesbury Township. Sorry, I just wanted to make a couple comments. First, I thank you guys for releasing the actual plan, the plan they had for the parking, because the school.
Okay, excuse me for
For
1
Spring-
second. I announced that we would have these comments when we get to the plan.
Oh, we're not,
or
no
in-
comments
to
about the school
To
board?
the settlement. So I asked that comments for everything other than the York Suburban School District issue be handled right now, and then when we get through some of the other items to clear them off of our agenda, we have the settlement set aside as
I
a separate
apologize, we were in the
discussion.
back,
That's
we
fine,
didn't hear that.
That's fine.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
We'll be glad to hear from you when you get to that point.
So at this point, I would like to ask our environmental engineer to come up. Diana?
Good evening. I have no updates to the report that we submitted. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions?
I have none.
Gentlemen?
Thank
No.
you.
Thank you.
Diana?
John, civil engineering?
I also don't have any other additions to my submitted report. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Any questions for our engineer?
I have none.
Thank you. Next, we have our consent agenda, items A through E. Are there any items on here that anyone would like to have removed for further discussion? I hear a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, now we have the Settlement and Land Development Plan Conditions Agreement, 701 Erlin Drive, that was tabled at the April 10th, 2025 Board of Supervisors meeting.
Thank you. So the motion at the last meeting was to table it until this meeting. So by that motion, the agreement is back up on the table. So procedurally, we just wanted to make sure that's clear. Okay, so I thought it might be a good idea just to kind of give a quick review of where we're at and what this agreement is supposed to do. The summary was posted on the website, so I don't know how many of you had a chance to look at it, but I'll briefly go over it as to how we got to this point. Back in May of 2024, the York Suburban School District submitted a preliminary/final land development plan for a new elementary school to replace the existing one. One of the requirements under the Township zoning ordinance is the calculation of the required number of parking spaces for the new elementary school. The required number of parking spaces based on the number of classrooms would be 56 spaces. There is a separate calculation under the zoning ordinance if the plan includes what is termed a public assembly area, such as an auditorium or a stadium. The land development plan showed an approximately 7,200 square foot space within the school that included a stage and bleachers. The township's calculation for the number of parking spaces for that area was 343 spaces for a total number of parking spaces of 399. The school district filed a variance with the zoning hearing board on the parking requirements. The zoning hearing, this was back in October. The zoning hearing board affirmed the township's calculation of the required number of parking spaces. The school district did not appeal that decision, but they went back and they revised their land development plan to remove the stage and bleachers from the 7,200 square foot area and relabeled it as sort of a gymnasium multi-purpose room. The school district then requested a determination from the zoning officer as to whether or not that takes it out of the definition of a public assembly area. The zoning officer's determination was that, well, you can rename it a gymnasium and a multi-purpose area, but you could potentially use it for a public assembly area. So therefore, I'm going to stick with my calculation under the public assembly area calculation under the zoning ordinance. That determination was appealed to the zoning hearing board. Because it was unclear as to what exactly the school district intended to use this 7,200 square foot area for, we approached the school district and engaged in conversations to find out what their intent was. And based on those discussions, we came up with this proposed settlement agreement that restricts the use of that 7,200 square foot area and gives the township enforcement powers if that's violated. And it will be part of the land development plan as a note, and that agreement would also be recorded. And it's that agreement that is now before the board. Now, the school district last month, I believe, approved the settlement agreement. The township tabled it because there was still a little bit of work that the township wanted to see with that agreement. The township did release that agreement to the public. So what I would like to do is very briefly go over the agreement and the proposal. The proposal was also put on the website. Since then, there were some comments that were submitted by some residents, and the school district, my understanding, met with their attorney, and they revised their proposal to include some additional restrictions. I also want to make it clear of one thing here, that a school is a permitted use in the R7 district. So they are allowed to operate a school. What we're dealing with here is kind of a very narrow question. How many parking spaces are going to be required? And it depends on what is a public assembly area. All right, so the settlement agreement, the changes that we made is, first of all, we're just going to call it a settlement agreement. We're deleting the and land development plan conditions. There were a couple of editorial changes that were minor. The result will be that there will be 174 off-street and striped parking spaces for the school. And the plan is going to be incorporated in the agreement that shows where those parking spaces are going to be. There will be no parking allowed in the front area off of Erland Drive. That will be designated no parking. That's going to be the area where the parents will come in to be able to drop off the kids and then go out. There won't be any parallel parking along the drive, parallel to Erland Drive that I just referred to. They're going to be constructing the building in accordance with the standards that they need to follow. A proposal for the planned program use is going to also be incorporated in this agreement and will become part of it. The district agreed to the beginning of each school year, they will provide to the township zoning officer a written list of planned district events outside of school hours, including dates, times, and proposed grade level attendees. If it's unscheduled, they will try to get it to us as soon as possible. And that's to allow us, if need be, to monitor the traffic, to at least alert the police department so that if there's any issues, double parking or things like that, or somebody's parking where they shouldn't, that can be addressed. If there's going to be a zoning, if there's land development approval and there's a zoning certificate issued, that certificate will also incorporate the terms of this agreement. Because the school district has granted the township an unlimited time waiver, normally under the MPC, the municipality's planning code, a municipality has to approve or deny a plan within 90 days of the filing of that plan. And that can be extended if the applicant agrees, and York Suburban has done that. But they also don't want the township to unreasonably delay review of the land development plan, which the township, frankly, would not do anyway. But that's part of the agreement. If upon approval of the agreement, the school district will withdraw the zoning appeal, and the township will withdraw the December 4th determination letter. We acknowledge that, you know, there may be activities there that are unrelated to the school. The school is a public property. It's not going to be fenced, it's not going to be gated. And so the school district doesn't want to be responsible for residents, people using the school or the school grounds, because they're not going to be there to monitor that. The township will have enforcement remedies to make sure that the agreement is abided by the school district. And that could either be filing a civil action, or it could be asking for injunctive relief with the court. The rest is pretty much boilerplate. I mean, a losing party, if there is a lawsuit, has to pay cost and attorney's fees. I'm trying to see if there is, I wanted to make note that there is a clause in here that states that there will be no bleachers or stage. But the school district wanted to reserve the right that they could come back to the township at a later date if they wanted to put in bleachers and a stage. But the township would have to approve that. And the reason that the school district wants that is that rather than have the kids sit on the floor, they could be sitting on bleachers. But you got to remember, and again, it's up to the township whether or not that would be approved in the future. That would still be subject to the proposal, all right, the restrictions. And then there's a mutual release language where the parties agree that this will end any disagreements that we have had in the past. Okay. So that's basically the parts, the substantive parts of the settlement agreement. As for the intermediate school proposal for planned program use of the gymnasium, it's essentially going to be used, obviously, for the grades 3 to 5. There will be assemblies, but that's for the students and the teachers and staff. Probably the biggest event will be, Parents' Night, but they're going to have graded, or at least gradations, in terms of not having everybody come at one time. And they've done a calculation that even if you were to have 100% participation, if 100% of the parents came, that would equal 138 parking spaces, which would still be sufficient since they're going to be putting in 174. Back to school events does not take place in the gymnasium, but there will be scheduled events by grade level to avoid traffic and parking congestion. They're going to still hold the big events, like concerts and whatever, either at the York Middle School or at the York Suburban High School. They're going to limit gymnasium use to events held during the school day and after-school team practices. Due to the reduced gym size, high school and middle school affiliated sanctioned sporting events cannot be held at the intermediate school and will remain at their current locations. These are additions to what was posted on the website. There may be elementary level recreational youth sporting events held at the intermediate school for practices and games. In addition, they've also said school events outside of normal school hours shall be limited to a maximum of 1 grade level during any one event per evening. School events outside of normal school hours for grade level events may be held throughout the building. No school-affiliated sporting events at the middle school or high school level shall be scheduled for or held at the gymnasium, but it may be used for practices for such teams. Games and practices for recreational teams at the elementary level may be held in the gymnasium, but will be limited to 2 teams at any one time. No sporting tournaments will be held at the East York Intermediate School. So that is the agreement and the proposal that is before the Board of Supervisors.
All right, so you heard my speech earlier. We're going to be careful about holding this to maximum of 3 minutes per person. I would like to open up the floor at this time to anyone who would like to address the board. This will not be a cross-examination expecting answers from us. This is for you to let us understand what you're thinking. So anyone who would like to speak, please come forward.
Good evening, everyone. Justin Tamevi, 3593 Cimarron Drive. I am an attorney here on behalf of Danny Barker, who lives at 740 Sundale, and Louise Soskin, who lives at 2467 Schoolhouse. These property owners are the most directly impacted to this project and are directly adjacent to the school property. My clients are opposed to the proposed settlement agreement for 701 Erlin that is before the board this evening. My clients are just requesting that this be sent back to the zoning hearing board where it has already been thoroughly vetted and allow the school district to go through that process, which they seem unwilling to do. If the school district is dissatisfied with that process and doesn't feel like they received a fair shake or an outcome that they wanted through the zoning hearing board process, they have the court system to go through. They have an ability to seek redress. What this settlement agreement does for my clients is really tries to take away the ability for my clients and the taxpayers here to have an opportunity for redress of their own. The agreement, or the last draft of the agreement that we've reviewed, we have significant concerns. The first is that Section 3D that allows a later approval of putting in bleachers and a stage. If this would go through the zoning hearing board and a similar agreement would be reached about this, there would be some enforcement mechanisms for my clients and other taxpayers in addition to the township to try to push that. We'd prefer that other people have the option to enforce that agreement in addition to the township so that you guys aren't forced with making the decision to have to expend additional township resources to go and be involved in costly litigation to enforce this agreement. Section 3E of the agreement references an attached proposal for programmed use, which contemplates events and activities occurring at the school with no provision to address limits on these participants. That clearly impacts the parking space usage that the zoning hearing board already weighed in on in favor of my clients. This document specifically references after-school team practices. Section 3E also requires the school to provide notice of events, but there's no restrictions on the size of those events or objective parameters for these events. It only requires a notice. Finally, Section 6 allows the school to rent the buildings and portions thereof, but there's no mechanism for determining how big those events are and the parking requirements.
Justin, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I forgot to mention that provision was deleted.
Okay. Well, again, we think from what we've seen of the agreement, the latest version of the agreement and the provisions that I referenced, the loopholes here, they're big enough to drive a car through. And frankly, we think a lot of cars are going to be driving through here, given what we're seeing, given what the residents at the zoning hearing board, again, a two-night proceeding where we heard from a lot of different residents, a lot of different folks that talk about the traffic volume at this school at half the size as it's anticipated to be. And we are just not confident that what is being proposed here is going to address those issues. And we'd respectfully request that this board reject this proposed settlement agreement and send it back to the zoning hearing board. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good
Danny
evening.
Barker, 740 Sundale Drive, York, Pennsylvania. I agree 100% with Justin's remarks and with the maximum voice possible. I want to make it crystal clear that I think that's some of the fanciest wordplay, my dear Esquire, that I've ever heard, and I reject it summarily. Thank you.
Dawn Benevenia, Dorm Street. I agree there's loopholes. This is an elementary school, and I don't know if you guys had kids, grandchildren, whatever, that went to elementary school. Did they have a variety night or like a show that they put on? Did you ever have field day where parents show up and participate in field day? There are so many loopholes and so many things that are not listed in this that the school unfortunately didn't tell us anything at their board. They just voted it. So we never got to talk. We never got answers on it. But there's too many loopholes as to what's going to happen here. And you're doubling the size. This agreement is not, who in the board is responsible for getting the notifications? Like, whose job description will that be? Will it be entered in as a job description that?
The zoning officer.
So the zoning officer will have that in their job description, that they're to be notified of all things, okay? Yeah, I mean, without a stage, you're decreasing, I don't know, isn't there field day? Isn't there talent shows that the kids do? I mean, I don't know. I guess that's not gonna happen anymore because we can't park?
No, it'll happen either at the middle school or the high school.
How are these kids getting from the middle school to the high school? Like, how are they, Like in the middle of the day, a lot of times they do a talent show. Parents show up. They do field day in the middle. So we're gonna bus the entire school to the middle school to have field day, so parents can show up and watch and participate.
When you say field day, we're talking about the 7,200 square foot space inside the building.
Correct, but if they're outside, parents are still coming. If it's raining, it's gonna,
It's a public, but it's a school, it's a permitted use. I mean, they're allowed to have field day.
how about a variety show when they're on the stage and they do, like a talent show?
And that will be at the middle school or the high school under the proposal.
So they will never happen at that school.
That's what the school district is.
And the middle school has appropriate parking for that.
That I can't answer.
Right. No, I'm just asking, like, that's already congested, and that went, that was built in older standards. So you are taking a substandard here, and you're putting it on something that was built a long time ago that's not built to standard either, if we really wanted to look at that school today. So it just seems too complex. I just think there's a lot of loopholes in this, and I wish you'd be a little more ironclad.
Thank you.
The agreement, thank you.
Good evening.
Evening.
Randy Quigley, Springettsbury Township. I lived for 30 years between Sundale and Erland,
Address, please.
2464. We have no sidewalks where we live. Little kids are walking down the street. There's people parked on each side of the street. You get down to Erland, make a left. Now, he said, well, there won't be any parking on the streets. He said that about Yorkshire. They park on the street over there with the loops, just so they could be the first out. Now, I drove tractor trailer 50 years. Big cities all across the United States and local. I know what traffic is everywhere. When you're going to send Indian Rock to this, quote, new school, I heard somebody mention that, well, there'll only be 23 more cars there, which is a joke. And the traffic planning. A woman talked up here the last time and had video of the traffic that goes on between the schools. And well, I'm not going to say, I wasn't going to talk at that time, but somebody kind of put her down because she wasn't, quote, a traffic planner. That's when I got up and talked. So I know a lot about traffic. Over 5 million miles I drove. And the traffic that's going to be over there in our neighborhood is going to be outrageous. Even the mailman doesn't like it because he can't get to the mailbox during those hours. You want to talk about having safety, emergency vehicles. If they're parked, and I know they're going to be, because there's not going to be anybody there to go, no, you can't park there, because everybody has to be first out. There's going to be I can't, with a tractor trailer, if those cars can't see my mirror, I can't see them. And I'm not backing out if an emergency vehicle is coming. As it is right now, it's the same way. That every second counts for an emergency. And I'll tell you what, everybody's worried about safety. I've seen your 8 steps everywhere in this township for safety. Yet you're going to leave all this traffic in our neighborhood.
Please come to a close.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Trotter, 725 Plymouth Road. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your first name. Mark. Gentlemen, I spoke before, and I'm going to say basically that nothing has changed. The form has not changed. We've gone through a lot of machinations. I was rather interested in the canopy idea. I thought I'd pass that on to Barry Bloss, that he could park his RV in front of his house, so he just extends a canopy out to the property line. But with all this, for the parking here that's needed, again, we're trying to do too much with too little. Putting 2 schools on 10.42 acres in this neighborhood with residential streets that are not wide enough. Some of the caveats you have are wonderful, but look at the level of complexity you have. Now let's put in the human factor of that. Do you think the average resident in York, in Spring Garden, coming over here, is going to follow all these rules and not parallel park along Irwin Drive? And these gentlemen here are going to be awfully busy, making sure that that place is clear, because they're not supposed to do that. The people from Spring Garden are going to more than double the traffic in here, because they're not going to have their kids bused all the time, and all these events that are going to come over across town, and they're going to be looking for a place to park, and they're going to use whatever available spot they have. It's going to be horrendous. I ask you to look at the fact that we're trying to put a huge building in a neighborhood that's not able to accommodate it with the traffic and the volume that it's going to be with the people there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gloria Patahovich, and I live at 705 Sundale Drive. My yard is directly across from the proposed road leading in off of Sundale with the buses and the deliveries. At any given day, the traffic for the pickup and the delivery of students are on both sides of the street. Last week, a pickup truck stopped right before I could turn into my driveway. He told me to stop. He told the oncoming traffic to stop as he walked across, waiting for his little guy to come across. Told the kid to get in the truck. He pets his dog. He tells me, still wait, which I could not get around him, and the car can't come through. He tells the oncoming traffic, please go through. He keeps sitting there before. All I had to do was make a right. And I could have said something, but there's a child involved. And I know we can't do anything about people's intelligence or anything. We have a woman that comes and bangs a Yui in my driveway every day just to park on the other side by the school. That's with just the number of children that are there now. Doubling it, I can't even begin to imagine. I cannot imagine what that street's like. I've already had my mail refused to be delivered. And again, the people are just there. I wish you would reconsider this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Louise Soskin, 2467 Schoolhouse Lane. So I've been attending both the school board and almost every township planning, zoning, supervisor meeting since I have found out about this project. Where we are now is about the numbers and the effects of those numbers. In the November zoning board, Dr. Kraus from the school district stipulated that between Indian Rock and East York Elementary, there are approximately 180 events a year with the students during the day and after school. The proposed intermediate school will have a maximum of 1,000 students. That is the capacity, 1,000 students, plus about 60 staff. Right now, there's already 700 students in the 2 present schools. Both schools have high family participation for these 180 events. Several of them do happen during the day. There is a field day. There is a Ninja Warrior Challenge that I'm aware of. There's several that I'm aware of because of where I live at East York. Even if the event is only for a portion of the students, that can potentially be hundreds of cars, 180 times a year. If the event is for the whole school, Traffic could be several hundreds of cars. There are things that happen all at once. You have 1,000 students who want to do the Secret Santa or the book fair with their parents after school. Where will all these cars park if the lower number is allowed? The effect will be a logistical traffic parking nightmare for the residents. Not only the neighbors immediately surrounding the school, but along the route. Imagine Raleigh, Erlin, and 7th Avenue when potentially hundreds of cars are descending onto those roads at the same time. Again, where will they park if there's not enough parking spots? The effect will be gridlock traffic and parking that could be a nightmare. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bernadette Whitaker, Springettsbury Township, 106 Lisa Lane. Hi, I know everybody has said a lot already, and I came up a couple times ago and talked about, I live up at Green Springs, behind Green Springs Plaza. The Camp Eddie Washington Road is going to be a train wreck, just like the rest of the Haynes Road, if the school goes in, two schools together. You know, I watched the end of the day school, and it was a train wreck again. I'm saying the same word over, but it really was, just for the 350 kids that are there now. I think that a lot of parents are going to be picking their kids up because they come from the Indian Rock area. And if we're here for the kids, everyone, and we're going to lose an auditorium, or we're going to lose a place to kick a ball, I don't see why we can't just keep Indian Rock Dam School and put the K through 2 at Indian Rock and put the K through 2 school right now at Valley View and use that for an athletic center for the high school, for the pool and everything else. That would change everything. We wouldn't have all these people arguing about where to put the school. The kids for Indian Rock and the parents can still stay out there with all the stuff going up at, you know, at Regis Glen. There's a lot more housing coming up there. So why don't we put the K through 2 out at Indian Rock and make that a bigger school, and make our athletic center at the K through 2 Valley View. Put the pool in there. I mean, we can't put this school off of Haynes Road. It is going to be a disaster for traffic. It is going to be a mess for the people that live in that neighborhood. It's not big enough. In 5 years from now, when the school is built, we're going to be sorry that we put it there for its 750 kids and more kids coming, excuse me, more kids coming maybe from Regis Glen area with the new housing. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Brenda Enders. I live at 720 Sundale Drive. The school is in my backyard, but like the parking, people park in front of my driveway. They block my mailbox. I've got my mail 2 times. I mean, 2 times that I couldn't get it. And one day I was coming across Brighton, which is in front of my house. I couldn't get across for like 5 minutes because of the traffic back and forth. And kids are running across the street. And anyway, I wanted to ask about the parking at the school. Are there going to be any lighting for the parking spaces?
Yes, they
And-
have to provide lighting.
Oh, they had that?
Yes.
Okay, and I just wondered, like, they're building this new school, an auditorium, why would they have to leave their school to go to another school for their functions? I know when I grew up, that's how, I lived in Delaware, and the 1 grade, I got on the bus at home, I went to the high school, I got on another bus and went like 20 miles away. And then at the end of the day, we came back on the bus and stuff. It's like all the traveling, just like the parents. The kids don't want to ride the bus, then the parents are going to bring them. So the parking it's just bad. And as you go down Schoolhouse, you can't, both sides of the street are filled with cars. I don't know how any kind of bus or anything's going to get down there, because even when I go down that street, there's 2 cars and you don't have no space to get through. But as far as the school, the auditorium, they need an auditorium, because eventually down the road, they're going to have one. But I don't know why you want to build a school and not have the space. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. Steve Vermeer, same spelling as that lady earlier. 2800 Lehigh Road. And I've been in Springettsbury Township as a taxpayer since 2001, taxpayer in York Suburban since 1993. I want to thank both boards, this board and the school board. We've heard a lot of negative tonight, and I feel maybe I'm a cult of one. I hope not. I want to thank you for the service and time you've put into this, despite threats of problems from legal counsels and others. I earnestly hope that this is approved, and I think that if the project moves ahead, it will be a positive for Springettsbury Township, for York Suburban, and for York generally. As a retired reporter, I've covered school boards, I've covered municipalities for the York Daily Record, for WSBA. I have a pesky habit of asking questions. I have a question tonight, and I guess it's a little different from the topic that has come up previously, the traffic issues. I don't live near the school, the proposed construction, and so I defer to those who do to know what the traffic is like there. I can understand those who have objections from the standpoint that the setbacks are very close to their property lines. That's basically a one-block area. I understand that heavy construction just a few feet from your property line can be very frightening, and the prospects could be negative on your own peace of mind. I understand also that there are sensitive negotiations involving litigation that require executive sessions, and we've had those one after another. That's the way this works. I understand that. Some negotiations have to be done away from the public so that you don't face the pressure that you otherwise would if all of this negotiation came out in public and was made available as it was being negotiated. I just have one question for those who oppose this project tonight, and that is, I want to ask if you think it's fair to accuse the school board of failing to be transparent and open throughout this process. Frankly, I don't see why that's funny. I also don't see anything improper or dishonest being done by the school district or by the township. The school board has had 50 public meetings since 2016.
You could wrap up your comments, please.
I intend to do that in just a second. And these and related plans. The district has made several concessions on this project. I simply ask that you approve it as the agreement has been finalized. Thank you.
Thank you.
Whitney Michael, 210 Winwood Road. So I think what I'm understanding is the initial proposal for everything they want to build, the parking was going to be obnoxious and obviously nowhere to put all those parking spaces. So there's now a compromise to cut it a little bit less than half. I mean, I agree with all these individuals. There's never going to be enough parking to be able to do everything they need to do, and it will be on the outside. Did you also say there's going to be allowed off-street parking? Okay.
Well, first of all, off-street parking is off-street parking. Anybody can park on a street. If things get bad, the township does have certain options that they could look at. to help the residents if that situation occurs.
Well, and I guess what really probably should be a bigger picture too is it's already occurring for these individuals that live in the area to begin with. And I do agree with the fact that I think even the amount they're asking for isn't going to be enough. And it's going to be all off-street, obnoxious, everywhere. Anyone who's
Well, you
ever
mean
lived there.
on-street parking.
Yeah, on-street parking, yeah. So whether, everybody will just be taking up the spaces, everywhere. And for what they need and to be able to justify building the school isn't working out. And I do have kids that are in the school and are graduating, and I disagree with the whole concept. But I don't think it should be approved. I think the whole thing has to go back, like they said, and it has to be reevaluated if it's still even an appropriate plan. But, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to address the board? Please click the raise hand button.
Raise your hand. I did.
Yep. Go ahead, please.
Oh, perfect. Hi.
Hi.
I am that house. I am the house that is 2438 Brookside Lane. I am directly affected by this. I love everybody's input, but this directly affects me. This is my house. This is my neighborhood. This school sounds great, but this is not the neighborhood. It is too small of a neighborhood with too many small children to bring another couple hundred kids in. It's not going to work. It's my street that's going to get all that traffic. It's Erlen that's going to get all that traffic. It's Schoolhouse. These roads are not big enough for the buses, for all the cars. You can put as many parking spots as you want. It is not going to work. The school plan is great. I love it. It's great in theory. But in reality, it is not going to work. 2438 Brookside Lane is greatly affected by this. This just is not the neighborhood. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom? Anyone else in the audience? Yes, please.
Again, I know we're really talking about parking at the, oh, I'm sorry, Linda Michael, Sundale Drive. I don't have to do this very often, but on the occasions I have, if I'm unlucky enough to be driving on Erlen Avenue when the kids are getting out of school or coming into school, there is no, we talked about the parking. Now, if they would enforce only parking on one side, and somebody needs to enforce it, I think the police can only do so much. I did call once because an emergency vehicle, you couldn't get down the street because they're parked on both sides. And again, they talked about them crossing the street. They will stop you, like when they're dropping their kids off, so they can walk their child across the street. So I guess you said there's going to be lined parking on Erlen Drive on one side. Did you say that? I misunderstood that then. Again, if they enforce parking only on one side for school pickup, and I know anybody can drive down there any other time of the day and park on the street, and it's allowed. But when it obstructs the vehicles, I thought there were regulations about emergency vehicles not being able to block roads so emergency vehicles would get through. I'm assuming that is true? Yes? No?
I don't know, personally.
Maybe they can answer that?
I don't know.
So, yeah, this isn't for you to question us. This is for you to provide your comments to us.
That's really all I wanted to say, that it is a nightmare down there if you're trying to leave or come back during the school times. Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments for the board? Yes, sir.
2330 Cool School Road.
How do you spell your last name, sir?
Strohman. Well, I probably forgot more about that area than most people know, since I was brought out there in '53 when my dad bought the house at Cambridge and Haynes right across the road. And we gave it to my sister, and we sold it in 2003, I believe it was. But I went out about 6 months ago when all this started, this whole debacle started, and nothing's changed. I mean, it's still the same school that I went to when it opened, and it's still the same roads, and it's still the same houses. And you want to put 2025 traffic on 1950 development. Something's got to give. It just doesn't work. And my dad bought that house. He said that don't ever buy a house on a main road. Well, now I know why, because I can remember when Haynes Road was 2 lanes down and 2 lanes up, and that was it. I mean, you didn't have what you have now. But I challenge any of the board to go out there when they're picking up the kids, which I have been out many times because I'm retired. But it's a zoo. I mean, there's no other way to put it than it's clearly just a zoo. And I talked to people that drove buses, which I'm related to. They had other words for it, but I won't repeat them here. But, and in the last meeting I was at when Suburban School Board got shut down, I believe it was in October or November, there was a man, he was a commissioner, and there were 2 guys that wanted to park their recreational vehicles in front of their houses, but the board shut them down, which I totally agree with. But he said, we would love to help you out, but if we do it for you, we have to do it for everybody. And that's what's going to happen here, because there's a lot of businesses and there's a lot of apartment buildings in Springettsbury Township. They're waiting to see what happens here, how it goes. And I guarantee you, you're going to have an influx. It might not happen in a month or 2, but you're going to have one influx of people, and I don't think you want that. And I would be real careful on how, what I sow right now, because I tell you what, that school is not, it is not designed to handle 750 kids. There's no way. And there's 16 acres sitting out in Indian Rock. And when I first started dating my wife in the early 70s, there was nothing out there. Well, now it grew up. Now they want to close it and ship everybody out to Indian Rock. The whole thing just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board this evening? All right, then we will move on.
If you need one.
I'm going to ask for a brief recess for an executive session with our attorney
To discuss legal matters.
to discuss legal matters. Thank you for protecting me, Charlie. All right, everyone, this meeting is back in session, and we have heard all of the deliberation on this from and all of the comments from both sides. We have received counsel from our solicitor, and so we have a question in front of us. Charles, do you want to do the honor?
Sure, as soon as I get my technicals all back together.
Okay, you're back.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Can you hear us?
I can. Mr. Chairman, with regard to agenda item 6A, I move for approval of the settlement settlement.
Just agreement.
Just a settlement
revised
agreement.
Proposed settlement agreement
And
as presented.
As revised, yes, and the proposal
the proposal.
revised.
And the revised proposal, YSSD proposal for program use parking, incorporated by reference.
With adding the date
Um,
and signature.
adding the date and signature on the,
Adding
On the
date and
proposal.
signature of both.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Charlie. James? Next, we have communication from supervisors. Charles, you want to talk about the 2025 proposed PSATS resolutions?
Yes, indeed. And gentlemen, before you, you have the PSATS resolutions. Again, as you remember, the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors is a Commonwealth-wide organization of all of us townships in the second class. Just as Pennsylvania is a very diverse state, so too are the number of and sizes and issues of all of our fellow second-class townships throughout this great Commonwealth. The resolutions you have before you is it's in familiar form that the PSATS Resolutions Committee works together, and here's resolutions that emanate largely from county associations, and then has vet discussion and makes their recommendations with regard to them, to the resolutions to be voted on at the PSATS conference this year in May. As is the case, I do represent the township on an annual basis at the conference and look for your guidance on these resolutions. If there's anything in particular that the Board of Supervisors would like me to vote one way or the other. And in years past, you've also granted me just the ability to represent, to the best of my ability, the township's interests as it pertains to these resolutions. Some of these are germane to the Commonwealth overall. Some of them are specific to a particular issue that may or may not affect us here in Springettsbury, but nevertheless, you can see what the issues are this year. You've had the opportunity to see them and review them, and so I just throw it out there. Unlike last year where I had the opportunity to be right in the middle of the resolutions committee, I've not had that opportunity this year. So these are as new to me as necessarily as they are to you, but I'm happy to get any feedback, thoughts, comments, so that I'm armed to vote accordingly at the conference coming up again in first part of May.
So I will say I found these much better written and much more rational than the ones at our own local event. I'm not sure that I disagreed with the position they took on any of them. Did you have anything? Did you have anything in specific, Charles, that you disagreed with the recommendation?
No, generally not, because when I look at the recommendations, especially the ones opposed, I hear the logic of not only the township staff but the leadership of the resolutions committee and the overall PSATS team. So, I did not see anything that was out of line or really crazy. I'd be happy to support all of those as outlined. Now, as you know, or maybe you don't, but at the convention there can be debate and discussion and clarity and additional information that may sway a perspective. But generally, I'm usually not swayed by any of the changing arguments there at the meeting. So
Yeah, so I guess should we have a motion on this to agree with the position presented and have Charles represent that position to the PSATs?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
why?
Aye.
All right.
Any other?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Any other comments from supervisors? All right, James, solicitor's report.
Mr. Chairman, no addition to my report unless there's any comments or questions.
Questions for our solicitor? Manager's report, Mark.
I do not have anything to add to my written report, but glad to answer any questions.
Any questions? Ordinances and resolutions. Resolution number 2025-39, recognition of John H. Beck.
I move for the adoption of resolution 2025-39.
Second.
Second.
Okay, second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Authorization to advertise Springettsbury Township Emergency Services Provider Cost Reimbursement Ordinance.
I move for authorization to advertise Springettsbury Township Emergency Service Provider Cost Reimbursement Ordinance.
I'll second that, but also just share with the board that I don't anticipate this to actually generate any revenue.
Thanks, Don. We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any items under old business that anyone would like to bring forward for discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I didn't have a chance to pull up the map, but, and I know that we have the concerns and interests of that 11th Avenue, Whiteford, that neighborhood at heart. The geography and create some significant limitations on what it is that we can do, but nevertheless, is there a possibility of maybe reworking some roads, maybe blocking off through flow blocking off the flow of traffic through the neighborhood with minimal disturbance to the residents who actually need to get in and out. I don't know if we've thought of actually temporarily closing roads in that area.
We've been through that multiple times now, I think.
In the
Just
meeting,
the actual closures at endpoints.
We've talked
I
about
remember the
closing
one
off-
ways. I
yeah.
remember the speed bumps.
We've talked about closing some sections to traffic at least one direction.
we brought that up in the public meeting that we had, and
At the church.
a lot of the people were against closing the roads. But
That's
that
right.
truly, in my opinion, that truly is the only way to prohibit cut-through traffic. Because if you remember, when we had the public meeting, we discussed the one-way streets, making it one-way. And then after that public meeting, I heard from several people that were not at the public meeting that were opposed to even the one-way. So it's a tough situation where all of the residents are not all on the same page. There's some want a certain method, some want another method, but in general, when you have traffic calming, it impacts the local residents probably even more so than
More so than
the
the
cut-through
cut-through.
folks.
Yeah.
But truly, if we want to eliminate the complaints that we've received with the cut-through, that's really the only way to do it, would be where it'd be a one-way in, one-way out situation. So we'll certainly talk about it in-house, but I don't know. As they said,
Well-
that the description they gave about the speed bumps is 100% correct. And 4 of them got ruined last year from the exact description she gave, where cars sit on top of it, gas it, rip them out of the ground, and they ruined 4 of them. So we got to buy 4 more.
Is it time to put the permanent ones in?
Permanent, they wouldn't do that, but I don't think the speed humps, I don't think, are doing the job. Because what we've found with speed humps in the past elsewhere is, unless you have them so close together, is people want to make up for the time lost. So in between speed bumps, they get into the gas faster than they normally would.
Have you been down Woodland?
I have. And I've talked to Manchester Township about that, and
Does
the
it work?
jury's out on that, because you got some people that live there that don't like them. So it's,
I don't know.
it's
What do you
hard
do?
it's hard, traffic calming is hard. But we'll look at options, but that neighborhood with the narrow streets and it's just tough.
If you close those streets to residents only, then you can't get delivery trucks if they order something on Amazon.
Legally, you can't. You can't even put, our district magistrate will not honor
Residents only.
local deliveries only, will not honor it.
Yeah.
Because if they're delivering somewhere locally, it's a local delivery. Even though it may not be on that street, if it's further down that street or a couple streets over, it's still a local delivery. So, but we'll talk about it. In-house, we'll still talk about it.
Will some of that be alleviated when Sherman Street Bridge is open
I
again?
think some of it will, but before those 2 bridge replacements, we still got complaints.
Yeah.
But I think some of it may go away, but not all of it.
I bring it up, I guess, because I wonder if the residents' attitudes have changed when they're enduring 50 cars in 15 minutes. That might be, the thing to measure. Is there an overall change in the attitudes of the residents as to some of these traffic calming measures?
But
Shut up.
is the current situation essentially temporary, though?
Yeah, that's the other question.
It's somewhat
Well, that's
temporary
good.
when she alluded to the 50 cars, which I don't doubt, on 11th. That's 2 factors probably. 1, the bridge is closed, and 2, Columbia Gas is replacing the gas line on Whiteford. So the cut-through, if you will, is to go on 11th, when a lot of those cars would probably stay on Whiteford.
I was, just to add to that, Whiteford Road was closed yesterday and today as a result, so that caused that bypass, and 11th got the brunt of it.
And 11th is very narrow. It's like a lane and a half wide. So,
And they don't want to put sidewalks in because it'll take their
Front yard.
property.
it'll take the property, but probably the biggest factor is who's paying for the sidewalks. Because generally, sidewalks are paid for by the developer when the development goes in.
And if not by the developer, then by the homeowner when it's
Correct.
required.
It's not an easy subject, it certainly isn't. It's not the only traffic calming that we hear, other areas of the township too, so.
John, do you know when they'll be finished with Whiteford?
Mark would probably have a better idea what they're doing, but
They're replacing the gas line, but I don't know when they'll be done. And we don't really have, because it's in the road right of way, the gas company has the right to do that work. They have to get a permit.
Yeah.
But we don't schedule that work per se.
Any Star Wars fans or Star Trek fans out there? This is Kirk's Kobayashi Maru.
How do we cheat?
Well, he made it possible to win.
He did. And we could win too by blocking the whole thing off and making them park their cars outside of the development.
Well,
I don't have anything. All right, anything else under old business? No new business. Brings us to the end of our agenda. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.